In the background of this late 1940s photo, across the road from those cottages by the lake, is the Burrill Lake Open Air Theatre. Burrill Lake itself is located about 200 kilometres south of Sydney. I guess the actual beginning of the Burrill Lake Open Air Theatre started in October of 1945, when plans were put into the local government authority. Here is how us kids of the 50s wanted their favourite movie theatre in a photo with us. But with a time traveller's point of view, you're now seeing how the theatre's front looked over the years. Now this was all started by a chap by the name of George Dean, who owned the land. The theatre was to be located next to a camping area that was named Bungalow Park, which was owned by the Navy. When the original plans had been put in, there had been one objection, and it was from the operator of the Milton School of Arts, which had a licence to screen films, and was located about 16 kilometres away to the north. But the objection was not upheld, and the Bungalow Park Theatre, as it was known then, opened in November of 1946. The admission prices were 2 and 6, or 25 cents for adults, and 9 pence, or about 10 cents for children. Enduring over the decades, the theatre's rugged exterior was made out of a mixture of slab timber, wooden shingles and corrugated iron. This was because at the end of the war in the Pacific, there was a shortage of suitable building materials, so you made do with whatever was around. There was no foyer. The main front area once had beautiful gardens with paths. There was even a wooden lattice-covered walkway coming from the side street. This all led to the ticket box, which had an iron bark roof and was in the middle between the two front exit doors. The left exit door doubled as the main entrance and featured a candy bar on the right as you went in. But eventually, because of flooding or patrons getting wet in the rain, the entrance was moved up the rise to the back of the theatre, and I really do believe the theatre lost a little something then. Over the years, the theatre had a number of owners, but it was in 1985 a Don friend, Jim Davis, and myself, Alan Bond, got together to form See the Stars Propriety Limited and to continue running the theatre on a lease as a hobby. Don and I went to this theatre as kids, but we were unknown to each other at the time. Many years later, when we met up, it came out in conversation. A very small world indeed. Then we found out, when we met up with Jim, that his father had run a theatre, so there was also that experience coming into the fold. So incredibly enthusiastic and completely naive to the ways of the film industry and how it operated, we gung-hoed our way into the business. We wanted to make an impression when we started by showing good double features. After all, this is all you could do with a theatre that could only screen films at night. The very first film that we screened there was Superman the movie. I had a special affinity with this film because I did the very first screening of it in Australia for a company called Village Roadshow, who were releasing it for Warner Brothers. I am glad that we did this, especially these days. Good on you, Chris. We slowly discovered the theatre was really a holiday time theatre where it blossomed for us. Other times it just wilted. But at first nothing could dampen our enthusiasm. Why, we even moved an old projector into the foyer. The movies we had were good, but there was a time when all those classic films from over the years had their big local premiere there. What you are looking at now is the original ticket box that was moved into the newly built foyer when the original entrance was changed, and it continued to serve faithfully for many years to come. Here we have an original slide projector that used glass slides to advertise local businesses and coming attractions. The candy bar had all the favourites. It had hot buttered popcorn, minties, fantails and Jaffas. We made our own choc tops, where most of them turned out rather strange looking, but everybody loved them like that. And now for the auditorium, which was certainly different to the usual palatial picture palace, but had a unique atmosphere all its own. The seats were really something else. Canvas slung between two iron poles on supports. Lots of people would have that memory of walking from the nearby holiday homes and camping areas, carrying their pillows and blankets to sit on, and the faces said it all. Timber shingles are featured around the screen of the theatre. Going in here is a new screen replacing the old. When not in use, the screen was protected by a wind-up, wind-down weather shield. Now the front part of the theatre not only housed a screen, but a stage as well, where originally there had been the occasional live show. If you look close enough, you'll see some of the stage lights up in the rafters. The original entrance was there on the right side of the screen. As you walked out into the auditorium, you were immediately out in the open section and you would look up and see the stars. You soaked up the atmosphere of the theatre, from the theatre music wafting through the night air to the soft lighting of around the screen and auditorium. Then you sat down with your parents, excited with the anticipation of the movies you were about to see. Grabbing a couple of cans of paint, we even had a go at jazzing up the old theatre sign. Now that's the way into the toilets, and if anyone's interested in conducting a survey, it's always the women's that were the most messy. For winter warmth, we had log fires that gave that special feeling of comfort. Before each holiday period, we had the theatre looking its best. The lawn in front of the screen was mowed, and everything looked fine as the theatre sat there proudly, patiently, waiting for its audience to bring it to life. But there was a time back in the 70s when it didn't look as good and needed a lot of work, a real good scrub up. Ah yes, the projection box. Well, this is where it all happened with the aid of mechanical movements and light. Our projection box was probably the most run-down projection box in the world. It was not classy with a capital C, but more arsey with a capital A. Yet it was probably the most public projection box in the world. Why? Well, it backed onto our car park. So many a time a person, mum or dad or both, would stick their head in the doorway and ask if their kids could come in and look at the cameras. Well, we said we didn't have cameras, but they were welcome to look at the projectors, aka the magic lens. As you went through the familiar rigmarole of the mysterious workings of the projectors, you could see the kids standing there wide-eyed with amazement. We sometimes wondered if we started the wheels turning for a future filmmaker. It was always quite fun to do this, and satisfying to know you have created a childhood memory for someone. Using an old film expression, Sheba's Yah, whatever that means. Before the night's performance, we would give the projectors a good run to oil up the workings. Ah, the mysterious workings of a magic lantern. Sadly, they won't be revealed here. They can remain a mystery. Why spoil the illusion of light and shadow? So, our little band of intrepid troopers, like Bob setting up the magic lens, and Julie Bannister and Don Mills getting ready to face the paying customers.
He woke up this morning and said, well, is it today? And I said, oh. I said, yeah, it is today, actually. What are you doing, Ella?
Watching my staff.
That's Don working over there.
Kicking down doors. Yeah, no rude gestures or obscene language, please.
You bloody kitty.
I hate those things, Ella.
Oh, you look alright.
Hey?
You look alright.
At least I put something decent on today.
The customers who made the biggest impression were those that excitedly told me they came there as kids and were now bringing their own children along to have that same wonderful experience. Then there were those customers who were really great. I especially liked the ones that asked what time the midnight show started, or those that came past the now showing posters to ask what was on that evening.
Did you see that?
See what?
I thought I saw something move. Up in the watchtower.
Now I can give thee immortality.
What happened? What's going on?
Oh, God, they did it.
But surely to God, they did.
And so during intermission, when just about everyone rushed out to the candy bar, those that remained seated were treated to a slideshow of some of the local businesses. We even showed off some of the beautiful local scenery, and this is what they saw. Originally, we wanted the professional cinema advertising. This would pay the rent and staff wages. Easy? Well. Strangely, for reasons we never found out, they seem to hedge around the fact of doing this for us. Even though another local cinema to the north had the professional cinema advertising. Strange indeed. So undaunted with Don using his talents at artwork, not only for the program guide, he did the advertising slides as well. I did the actual photography and even used film slides my father had taken of the local area over the years. We even had a map on the back of our program guide showing where our advertisers were located. But one by one they dropped off. I guess figuring $15 a week was too expensive, even though their business was advertised on 12,000 program guides each holiday season. So in the end, we presented a scenic travelogue as a little extra we threw in to provide a full night's entertainment. Oh, and by the way, for those who haven't realised, you are now seeing how our masking on the screen goes from widescreen to cinemascope. Now our audience sits down with their chips, popcorn and drinks, getting themselves ready for the second part of the show. Now let's go for a look behind the scenes. The last thing you want to happen when you have an open air theatre is rain, and plenty of it. Believe me, no one was singing or dancing in the rain or buying tickets at night when it was like this. Wet weather was always a turn-off. That's why they moved the entrance up to the back of the theatre. But how can you expect customers to sit there when there is just as much rain pouring through the roof and ceiling as there is outside? Perhaps the powers that be thought since half a roof was missing, a few extra holes wouldn't make any difference. But really, it's hard to run a business like this when the roof doesn't get fixed, but that's another story. But to turn a negative into a positive, the only bonus was that the floor got washed. And even the indoor plants got watered. And look, we also had another hole in the ceiling, rent-free. Lucky us. And speaking of holes, get a load of this. Now this was another happy occasion. 1 week before school holidays, when Don and I turned up to ready the theatre, we were blessed with this, and it wasn't a new entrance. The powers that be thought they were doing us a favour by removing a third of the seats and placing piles of dirt in front of the screen. Some favour, but it turned out to be a double-edged sword because we did eventually gain a more extensive lawn. But couldn't this have happened till after the holidays? And shouldn't we have been even consulted? With a theatre like this, you're open to all sorts of mercies. And the weather shield offered little protection in the windstorm that did this. Here's another fun thing, an electrical burnout. This little fellow is called a solenoid. In the projector, when you flick a switch, they perform the function of doing the changeover from one projector to another, or from one reel to another. It's embarrassing when they don't work. And it goes in here, next to the light gateway in the projector head, attached to these wires to complete the circuit for the changeover. This was another joyful occasion. The wind of this time ripped the weather shield apart, and yours truly had to give it the old heave-ho and put up another one. That was a barrel of fun. Lots of other things happened as well, including the idiots that used to throw rocks over the wall, not realising how close they came to hitting someone. We gave chase and most often we caught them, and they just weren't kids, adults did it as well. Another time, a couple of students from a visiting high school from Canberra decided to punch a hole through the screen, and the school in the end didn't want to know about it. It was between us and the students' parents, who even after a court verdict wouldn't cough up the money for repairs. Nice. The highs and lows continued, but as the years passed, Jim and Don left, and at the beginning of 1990 I had to give it away too, and See the Stars ceased running the Burrill Lake Open Air Theatre. In other hands, the theatre struggled on for a few years, but by 1995 it was well and truly closed. Yes, stripped of seats and projection equipment, the theatre had an inglorious existence as a storage shed for trucks. Yet, its exterior retained its dignity, waiting for that time when someone who had the heart would make it live again. That it would show the latest great films. It saw the changes in film technology. Television came in and it survived. Video movies came in and it survived. Over the years, the theatre and surrounding acreage belonging to the site had been put up for sale at various times, but each time it had been passed in. It was in the late 90s that it was finally sold. I was approached to run the theatre again with no rent. But the trouble was, there was also no projection gear and no seats. No anything. Too expensive to equip out, I passed on it. And things change. Now there was newer technology, satellite TV and DVDs. And what is the legacy of the Burrill Lake Open Air Theatre? It is all the offspring it has created. The open air cinemas of the late 20th and into the 21st century and beyond. Open air cinemas with screens set up in parks or even on harbours. For spring and summer showings on the warm evenings where families can come along, bring their pillows and blankets to sit on. You are watching from lawns on gentle slopes in the parks or on shorelines with wide-eyed amazement at the pictures that move. So when you see a film, see not just the film, but the timeless wonder that it works, the artistry of the talent involved from all over the world. Sense the excitement of it all. Experience that feeling. Allow the magic to happen. Never let it leave you from childhood to adulthood. Feel all of these emotions, and you too will always be part of an old picture show called the Burrill Lake Open Air Theatre.